it's trite at this point of, networking, growing your network. And I agree with it. I think especially if you don't have 100 people who know you, like you, trust you, that's the first goal. So I've mentored a number of MBA students and I said, look, before you go anywhere, just get to 100, all right? Go help 100 people.
This is BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgenson.
Welcome out to BizNinja Entrepreneur Radio. We are rolling into our 16th season. That's 16 years on air, interviewing entrepreneurs and founders and talking about the joys of entrepreneurship, the ups and the downs. And today we have a great guest who has seen a few things, who has done more than a few startups, worked in some amazing projects, is currently the founder of Hey Lois, and we're going to talk about the power of connection, the power of networking, the power of abundance, and I'm really excited. Welcome out to the show, Garrett Dunham.
Hey, thank you so much, Tyler. I'm really thrilled to be here.
I
had to laugh a little bit.
Yeah.
I had to laugh a little bit calling about the highs and lows of entrepreneurship, and as I tell founders, man, it is the highest highs you'll ever experience, and it is the lowest of lows. And we'll try not to touch on too many of those here today, but it is high and it is low, and it is everything in between.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that's probably similar to what women say about childbirth. You don't understand it unless you've experienced it, right? I have no idea. Like, doesn't look fun. Right. And so, but when I know with entrepreneurship, the joys of seeing like an idea you have succeed is just amazing. And seeing
it's
a team
euphoric.
come together and build momentum and all these things. For a while I was doing physical products, and seeing products you had an idea on actually on store shelves and people buying it is so cool. But man, the downs can be rough. So I do want to hear, way back in the beginning, Garrett, when was that first moment of your life you realized you were an entrepreneur?
Oh, man. So when I was 10, I wanted to be an inventor, and it was the remote controlled vacuum. I saw my mother vacuuming, and she tried to get us to do it. I said, that looks terrible, but I do like remote controlled items. And, one thing I wish then is I didn't have the self-confidence or knowledge on how to build something like that. I think it would have been a bit of a commercial flop. And now knowing what I know, it would have cost a lot of money to create. But I don't know, that kind of gave me that spark. And then my mother was in executive recruiting during the .com days out in Silicon Valley. And so we got to see just a lot of interesting things there. And because she was commissioned, and actually when she and my father divorced, and they set up the child support, she didn't realize that she'd be the one paying the child support on the first year and every year for a decade, because she went from almost about to lose our childhood home into being not only the breadwinner, but she was outpacing my father. And I don't know. I think the combination of those things, of seeing that kind of unlimited upside, having that, inventor spark, and then, went off, got a mechanical engineering degree in order to go be an inventor. But I was born and raised in Silicon Valley, so I quickly got into software, and never really did a whole lot in that with physical products.
Yeah, well, software is inventing as well, right? It's just not physical products. And so what was your first jump into, we'll call it, what was your first business venture or first real go at entrepreneurship?
Oh, man. I don't talk. I have it still on my LinkedIn. I don't talk about it. HireWire. I left it on my LinkedIn as like a reminder of this was my really bad idea. I think I, put 6 different fully self-sustaining companies together. I'm like, this will be a great idea. We can do it in our spare time, as somebody who has zero experience at all in the space. One of the things, though, right around then, so it was interesting. I graduated from Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, not too far from you. I said, I want to go to San Diego. At the time, I was dating someone who went back up to Northern California. So I went back to the Bay Area. And I worked in sales for 3 months selling servers to small businesses, email servers to small businesses in 2009. At which point, every time I kept saying, well, why not just use Google because it's $10 a month and I'm trying to sell you a $15,000 thing. I got fired. And I say that because I had no idea what I was going to do. But I did know where there were people who were doing what I wanted to do, which I've found this has been a fairly regular theme for me in my life. And so it was the Hacker Dojo up in Mountain View. At the time, it was the largest community kind of maker hacker space. And I just said, I'm just going to go hang out there. And I don't know, things will happen. So I tried the HireWire idea. It never got even remotely close to anywhere. But because of being in that environment, I then got into events weirdly. We'd hosted this reverse job fair where engineers got the booths and recruiters had to walk around. So it was the second year. It wasn't my idea. I'm not going to try to claim credit for the idea. I did 10x their revenue year over year. And then that led to a whole bunch of other things. But I thought that was maybe an interesting thing that I've seen over and over. Just like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing and I don't know where I'm going. I do know, or I know maybe roughly where I'm going. So where are people doing what it is that I want to do? I want to just hang out with them and be in those rooms, in those environments. And a ridiculous amount of opportunity has come from exactly that. And so, yeah, I've called it the baloney method. Well, called something similar, the baloney method of just, chucking stuff out there. And that was actually how I met Richard Branson and hung out with him on his island. I said, I want to rent his island. And 28 people said, you're insane. One person said he'd pay for it. And one person said, you should meet my buddy, Brian. Brian introduced me to his buddy, Rim. Rim hosts the Necker Cup on Necker Island. And made an introduction for him that made him a bunch of money. And as a thank you, he flew me out to meet Richard. So it's weird how things work. But anyway, that wasn't exactly the question you asked, but possibly some interesting little things.
That's how this is supposed to go, right? We start with one question. We just see where the night takes us. But when you are, I really liked what you said about the idea of like, you didn't know where you or what you wanted to do yet, but you knew, hey, maybe I'll go spend time with people that seem to be doing the type of thing I like. And it seems like that idea of proximity, networking, and connection has stayed true for you throughout your career. How important is networking and staying connected? Like, how important is connecting to you, and how do you approach it?
Great question. So, it's trite at this point of, networking, growing your network. And I agree with it. I think especially if you don't have 100 people who know you, like you, trust you, that's the first goal. So I've mentored a number of MBA students, and I said, look, before you go anywhere, just get to 100, right? Go help 100 people. And but after that, so if we look back at towards the beginning of my career, where those events, started doing events, and I started doing hackathons, and it was frankly to build a network, right? It's shockingly easy. As I'm sure you're aware of with this show, it's shockingly easy to get people to show up when you say, hey, can I make you look good in front of the people you want to look good in front of? And because of that, I got to meet some really, really phenomenal people, hosting about a dozen different hackathons and events. What I didn't do, right? So I got to my 100. I didn't have a good way and system of following up with people. And I didn't have a good way of nurturing those connections. And so I think similar to a lot of startups that focus on getting new business, neglecting the fact that their 10% churn is absolutely killing them. And that if they could drop that by, 10%, right? If they can drop it from 10 to 9, that's a ton of additional money and revenue that they could bring in. So similarly with networking, right? Everybody's focused on, I want to go out, give my business card out, is, the stereotypical networking. Somebody who's good at networking might go out and meet a bunch of folks, but it's often easy to forget about, hey, if once you get to that 100, a lot of times everybody you need to know to do just about whatever it is you want, right? Yeah. Especially first and second line. And so I say that because you asked about connecting, right? I've sent now well, I had the goal of making 1,000, actually it was 500 introductions in a year, because I thought that would be a crazy number. And then I ended up doing that by June and ended that year at 1,234, which was a number I figured I'd never forget. So I stopped there for a few days. And, and so from, now I realize it almost sounds like a made up number, but, that it was absolutely life changing. And one of the things I found was really interesting about it is that introductions and connections, right? If you can do it well, if you can think about, okay, where's the overlap of, and we can go deeper into how to connect, and I could probably speak about that for an hour. But if we so focused on the nurturing standpoint, right? If I want to keep in touch with you, we're going to have an hour-long conversation. Let's say we hit it off and I go, man, Tyler's fantastic. I want to keep in touch with him. I've been on the receiving side of like, hey, Tyler, can you jump on a call? Hey, Tyler, can you grab coffee? Hey, Tyler, can you? And I don't know about you, but for me, it's like, hey, I don't have, like, I did the math on if I wanted to keep in touch with every single person that I really wanted to keep in touch with, that I've got in my CRM, right? This is not every person I've met, just the ones I say, I want to keep in touch with. And if all I did was 8 hours of reconnection calls, talking to somebody, everybody in that list once per quarter, I'd have 8 minutes and 36 seconds per person with no bathroom breaks and no lunch breaks. And also no connection, right? Hey, Tyler, good to talk. Okay. Sorry, it's been 8 minutes. I got to go. It's not building any relationship. And so what I found is with connections and introductions, especially, I can show up in your inbox. I can, if I meet a entrepreneur who'd be a phenomenal person for your show, for example, and I send them, and that's something that you want. I mean, we would talk about that first. I love asking about, what are your big 3 goals and initiatives for the next year? And, but let's say that's one of them. And if in a week I send you, hey, I met this entrepreneur who just sold 10% of his company for $100 million. I'm actually thinking of somebody right now who might be a good fit for this show, and who did exactly that. I say, would you like to meet him? That's taken me 50 seconds, especially using Hey Lois. I got to give a little plug for my own technology, is making good introductions can take 20 minutes without the tools. But it's taken me 50 seconds. And instead of saying, hey, Tyler, will you give to me? Will you give me your time? Will you sit down with coffee for me because I want you to remember me? So I say, hey, Tyler, you told me this was important. Here, would you like it? Would you like the thing that you told me you wanted? And I could tell you from personal experience doing this, a lot of times it's just thanks. But a lot of times it's, oh man, thank you. By the way, we need to reconnect. I have this opportunity. It'd be perfect for you. Or I have this deal and I want to run it by you. Maybe you know somebody. I'd be happy to give you, a sizable commission. And again, it's taken me 50 seconds, not even the 8 minutes and 36 seconds, but the actual, the value, it's leverage, right? The value to time is astronomical. You go, Garrett is my new favorite person. He just introduced me to Richard Branson. I will never forget him. Meanwhile, I'm going, great. Richard wanted something Tyler had something, Tyler could give something or could get something from Richard. Now you're both happy and I've spent 50 seconds on it. It'd be the equivalent of doing a 2-hour long deep dive call, right? So I love that kind of stuff. And if you want, we can talk about the theory.
Yeah, it's almost just like conscious networking. Networking should be like this, right? And yet when you're talking about it, I'm realizing just how seldom it really is. Mm-hmm. But really, that's what your network, should be doing is like, oh, I know these people's mutual goals. I know what they're looking for and what they're interested in. So this is a potential quality introduction, not just random or one directional. Because so many times in networking, people are really looking for one-sided benefit, right? And I think that breaks, most relationships don't develop anywhere or go anywhere. How did you make that shift from like getting your first 100 people to connect with? Like, where was the light bulb that went on that was, no, I'm really going to focus on depth, not just quantity?
And this was something that you had just said, also brought this up. I don't know if it was quite as conscious until I started mentoring others and they said, but we don't know anyone. I'm like, great, then go start meeting folks. Once you get to 100, it doesn't matter what you focus on. You're going to add quantity. So my goal originally was I want to be the most helpful person anyone has ever met. And so I would spend 55 minutes of a 60-minute call asking them questions. I made a game out of it of like, could I get to the point where they've been talking for at least, 55 of the 60 minutes? Now, I also would note mentally of at some point in that last 5 minutes, do they go, oh crap, I've been talking for 55 minutes. I need to know more about you. Or do they just keep steamrolling on through? And it's a really good way of knowing a giver versus a taker, or even somebody who's, a matcher. But yeah, I mean, once I got to that 100, now it's not uncommon for me to have 10 to 20 random people introduced to me a week. And it's a mind flip that I think I would love to see more people have, in that you can focus on yourself by focusing on someone else. What I mean by that is networking, right? To your point of, hey, it usually feels like someone comes with an ask or is looking out for themselves. And you can feel that on the other side. I've even had a few people be like, oh, well, you're a connector. I can't wait to find out who you're going to connect me to. Guess how many people combined they've all met from me? Not a damn person. Right. And yet I have sent one person 46 introductions after a 45-minute phone call was my record of just for a single person. But the point of that being, especially if you're interacting with a connector, if you can show that you care, they'll go crazy. But even if that's not the way that you think, right? And for me, that shift didn't end up happening per se, because I just had so much inbound, and that inbound came from focusing on the others. So it was almost like if I'd focused on myself, I never would have gotten the level of opportunities that I got by focusing on others. There's several different quotes that are kind of often used there. In fact, they're in the footer of Hey Lois as kind of a guiding principle. But it's an interesting mind shift of being able to say, like, look, I can focus on others. So I call this the power law of people, in that, exponentials are really hard they're impossible for the human brain to fathom. The fun one is if you take, a standard 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and if you were able to, double it 50 times, you think, oh, the stack of paper might be maybe yay high, or someone's wild. They might say the Empire State Building. It'd go to the moon and back 297 times, round trip. Wow. Right? 50 times doubling a single piece of paper. Now, same thing with, you see this in venture capital, and I think that you see this when it comes to connecting and introducing folks, is that, I would say, hey, if you went out and you helped 100 people and 99 of them forgot to even thank you, and one of them flew you out to Richard Branson's island and had you hang out with him for 3 days, and it's all or nothing. You don't know if it's the first or the 50th or the 100th that's going to do that. Would you still help all of those folks? And at least I usually say this to MBA students, and they go, well, duh. Like, well, that's the reason. That's power law, right? I only need 1 out of 100 to help me back, to make it worth it 1,000 times over. And so then it allows me to stay focused on helping other people, because at the end of the day, I go, yeah, okay, maybe you're one of the 99. That's fine. But there's maybe 6 people I've met in all of this, in about 750 people, that have been just wildly life-changing and has made all of the rest of them worth it. So, I don't know if I can give you the exact moment on like depth versus breadth, but it almost like one of them creates the other.
Yeah, that's true. I appreciate the story behind it. When so you're obviously, your main focus right now is building Hey Lois, and I want to go into that here in a minute and really understand what it is and why you chose that as the thing you're going to focus on. But you're not, you do some other things too. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with Entrepreneur Ventures. That just seems like a really cool project.
Oh, I love it. So that was actually in my connecting and introducing. I ended up hosting an event, and it was a company called Stonks, which was, well, I won't go into it because I can't actually pitch them very well. But their CEO brought out the now GP of Entrepreneur and of Entrepreneur Ventures, sorry. And he saw in my footer, it said future GP of Melzi Ventures, right? I didn't have a fund. I just said like, man, I don't know if I'm into the whole manifesting thing, but I guess it kind of was like, I'm manifesting this. And he says, well, why does it say future GP? I said, well, because I'm not a GP yet. And I'm not trying to pretend like I am. I'm not writing any checks. He said, well, why don't I make you a GP? I'm an LP in 35 different funds. And I said, you're my new best friend. And we hit it off. I think I made 20 or 30 introductions for him. And he said, look, I want this. I don't know exactly what's going on, but I want this to be part of my fund. So what Entrepreneur Ventures is, and what I like about its structure, is that it is a fund in partnership with Entrepreneur Magazine, so Entrepreneur Media. And our pitch is, hey, look, we make a lot of investments. So 170 startups per year is the goal. Small checks, $25,000. But to a founder, you say, hey, we can give you a $25,000 check and get you access to 20 million potential customers. Get them on the podcast, the blog, the website, right? If you look at venture capital, a lot of people think Shark Tank. It's not Shark Tank, right? It's not a bunch of, not in the good deals. There's a lot of deals that just aren't venture fundable. But when it comes to the good deals, I've been on group texts where one VC congratulates another VC on getting the founder to take their money. Right? If you look at what am I selling as a venture capitalist, it's literally money. It is the most commoditized thing possible. It is, right? So I'm trying to get you to take my money. And what I love about entrepreneurs is we're saying, look, it's a small hit on your cap table with a humongous upside. And that has gotten us access to amazing deals. Maria Shriver's company, Mosh, is one that was just like that. She says, we're full up. We can't, we don't have any room. I said, well, we've got 20 million readers. Can you make room for, 25 or 50K? Let's say we got into that deal and it's looking like it's about to be a 9X markup. So anyway, that's what Entrepreneur is doing. And it's been a lot of fun. I think
it's really cool because so many venture capitalists and venture firms don't necessarily they just have the money, right? Some of them have access and other things, but most of them just have the cash, which is important. But having the cash plus visibility and exposure, really cool combination where, they also get access to, new eyeballs on everything. It's a pretty brilliant play, and it plays exactly into what you were just talking about, how not every single thing has to be a success. If you're doing 170 investments, what do you think their target win rate is?
I target win rate. I mean, we're pretty early still, so we're on Fund 1, and we're still actually fundraising for Fund 1, though we've deployed I think we deployed about 2 million so far, and we're marked up. Oh, I'm sure that this is an SEC violation, so I make no promises. But I think it's 6 to 10% is. That's so it's been a good play so far, and there's really two ways to make money in venture. One is that you catch one of the outliers and you have a concentrated portfolio. The other is indexing. So if you look at 500 startups, I think this data may have come from 500 startups, so I may, they would be heavily biased. But it's effectively like if you don't think you are able to beat Sequoia or a number of the earlier stage funds that can get access to any deal that they want, then indexing is it's by far the second best return rate, then followed by all of the rest of the concentrated portfolios that didn't catch that one or two lightning in the bottle. And so, we should be, let's just say we should have a pretty good return. I would say in terms of like target win rate, if you're asking like how many startups do we think will succeed? I mean, if you ask any VC, it's typically, hey, if you, out of every 10, you hope one pays the fund, meaning if it's a $10 million fund, they return $10 million. And then, 2 of them have a nice return and 7 of them are break even or a zero. Now,
Yeah.
ideally, you really, for a venture to work, it's more of you need 10x, 10 to 100x, right? You catch your 100x. And honestly, I would expect it to be similar for entrepreneur ventures, but I can't make any forward-looking statements or anything like
no,
that.
but that was a good breakdown, and I appreciate you got to what I was kind of looking at with just that general idea of how funds look at winning, right? They recognize that not all of them are going to win, and I just think that's an important part of understanding what's going on in startups and how to do that. Now, you've been a entrepreneur in residence, you've been a CMO, and now you're back to running and founding Hey Lois. So, what is Hey Lois? Explain why this is where your energy is going.
Yeah, I mean, Hey Lois is really built out of all the value that I got from all these introductions and connections. And then as I've been out there and meeting other connectors and things, I've found that, it's maybe a little more atypical than most connectors or even, the average person. And I want to bring that value out to, everybody. And when I say that value, right, I want to make being radically generous into a career path. And I think that I strongly feel like we can do it. Specifically, almost unlocking the network like Airbnb unlocked the spare bedroom. I think there's a humongous new market there that is just not tapped yet. And I don't know. I feel like I'm fairly unique in this space, and finding out that I'm amongst maybe the top few percent of connectors, and really have kind of focused on this for several years. So in terms of what is Lois, right? We're going to actually be moving more towards a model for using AI to not only be able to say, okay, who's in your network, right? Network discovery builds a CRM, for lack of a better term, based on your email inbox, calendar, things like that. It's kind of like there's just table stakes, similar to you need money in venture to be able to be a VC, but that's not sufficient. You need a network. You need a lot of connectors just didn't have one. So, we use AI to turn your entire inbox into, mine was 1,113 different contacts, complete with a blurb, their interests, their focus areas. It's like 60 different data points. And that was in 4 taps and no typing. Built out that whole thing for me. And then from there, I'm excited about, there's the tools to, I say, make introductions make quality introductions faster than you could make an introduction of just like, hey, Tyler, you should meet Chris. You both will do business together. Go. You kind of built Superhuman for introductions. And right now you can do network of network searches as well. So it can do a one-shot leads list. If you were to say sign up and we're connected because we've been emailing, and you say, I want to know successful entrepreneurs to interview for my show. It would create a one-shot lead list of everyone in my network and everybody else who who's on Hey Lois, and who's the right connection path to get to that second line connection. Because frankly, LinkedIn, I've had 46 mutuals and 3 of them would actually make an introduction for me. And then all 3 of them hadn't spoken to the person in a decade. And so 46 mutuals and no way to get in. And so that was one of the ways to solve it. And then also I just have had so many folks say, Garrett, can you help me out with this deal, with fundraising, with, customers, clients, my event. Now I have a link with Lois. I can send them my link and say, look, use AI. It'll take your deck. It'll build out really high quality copy. It'll figure out who's your ideal customer profiles. And then, if you want to offer a commission, great, you can offer me a commission. But then that AI will search my network for you. You can request introductions. From a connector standpoint, I can now make 9 introductions in 28 seconds of total effort. And that includes, somebody going on, they do all the work. I just pops into my inbox and says, hey, I'm looking for successful entrepreneurs. I go, you know what, Tyler, I really enjoyed our conversation. I'd be happy to, accept this one, go through. Yes, yes, yes. Oh, no, that person would not be a good fit. Tyler wouldn't know it based on the AI. And you can go in and out and through that. But ultimately what I want to get to is the ability to hire a connector on retainer for 1/10 of what you can hire a connector for, but have them be basically out, for a connector. I want them to add $100,000 in revenue or an income per year with almost no additional effort. Just go out, meet people, help them build networks, build trust, and ultimately turn it into a full-time or a part-time gig, because you've got these folks who are willing to say, look, Tyler, you meet a lot of good people on your show. I just want to be the first person that you introduce venture funds to, or I want to be the first person that you introduce entrepreneurs who are nearing an exit or whatever it is, right? Yeah. And you don't have to think about it because AI is doing all the effort for you, going, okay, is Garrett a match for my client base? Is Chris Dennert a match for my client base, et cetera? So that's where we're kind of aiming at here over the next few weeks.
That's powerful. One of the concerns that I have with AI, because overall I'm an early adopter and I'm very pro AI, but the biggest concern I have is when people use AI to replace themselves and replace the human part of their connection. How do you guys ensure, if you do, how do you guys ensure that the person, you don't become disconnected from the relationship and let the AI do the handle all the work, right? You're still, how do you keep the human connected?
I'm super, super passionate about, like, we are here to make the connector look good, not to replace them. And so, when we're sending an introduction email, you can do a one click, you can sign in and say, give permission to say, yeah, Google, you can send emails from my email inbox on my behalf. You don't have to, but you can. What happens? You get a plain text email is sent. The only branding is in the PS of, like, this was sent by hand by Hey Lois. It was, so if you're on it, if you're trying to make an introduction to me for, let's say, Jonathan Hung, who's the general partner at Entrepreneur, you might say, hey, you guys should meet, but all the content, it's plain text. It's from your inbox. You're either manually doing it or you're letting the AI kind of surface the people. It's taking a lot of the friction out. And I've seen a lot of competitive tools. They're all very big on making sure that everyone knows where it came from. And I think in a lot of ways they're trying to, well, they're stealing a lot of the value, right? I'm making introductions to build that relationship. But if it's got a bunch of branding on somebody else's brand, it's saying, hey, Tyler, I wasn't really thinking about you, but this other tool was. Versus, like, no, this was actually something I sent you. And yeah, Lois helped me to surface this introduction because I've got 782 people who I am close-ish with, that I can't keep all of those folks in my head at all times. And so it's doing a lot of that surfacing and all that stuff. So it's a pretty core component of everything we do, is keeping that human in the loop. And just making sure that, like, the reason that people send introductions is not to go make Lois look good. And it's not that hard to make, well, frankly, crappy introductions of you two should meet and do business together. But most of the tools that I've found that, make that, simplify that, they don't really think in those terms. So I don't know. I think a lot about just how can we kind of keep the humans in the loop and getting credit.
Absolutely. It's there's so many tools now that will reply for you or start a reply. And I'm like, eventually people are just going to start emailing back and forth and the people aren't involved anymore. Then these deals are happening and people are like, I don't remember what happened. And I'm like, we got to be careful of it. But we're coming closer here to the end of the show. And I would be remiss if we didn't talk about your manifesto and the concept of radical abundance. Can you share with us what that is and why it matters?
I think we've, in a lot of ways, we've touched on a lot of the components of radical abundance, but it really is the idea of being able to focus on giving with an expectation that you will get more in the end than you gave out, not necessarily knowing from whom. So, we mentioned the power law of people, right? I can go out and help 100 people if I know that If in my heart I go, okay, 1 out of 100 people is going to return a 1,000-fold return and make it, 10x worth it. That makes it really easy to be generous. But if I have to think about, and what a lot of people think about is they go, okay, well, I helped 10 people, nobody helped me back. I say, okay, so then go help 90 more. Like, your problem is not that nobody helped you back. Your problem is that you don't have enough volume and your sample size is too small. And, or they say, oh, well, what if they're a taker? 17% of the population are takers. I wish I could remember which book that came out of, but that research came out of. And so that means you've got an 83% chance of somebody being a giver or at least a matcher. I don't know about you, but Vegas was built on 52% odds. I would take 83% odds all day long. So
Sure.
that's kind of the core of radical abundance. It's really like, hey, you're going to I've got some bruises, but I've got some ridiculous wins from doing this. And it's really that ability to say, you know what, I'm going to get more in the end than I am giving out. I don't know from whom, I don't know when or where, and I'm not going to stress about it. I'm not going to try to say, okay, well, I came on Tyler's show and so, that was helpful for him. So now I got to make, is he going to give me anything back? Right. That's silly in my opinion. So that's kind of the core of it. And you can read about the manifesto on heylois.com. It is the second item right underneath the that hero image, because that's how important it is to us and to the business.
I love it. Now, you've done a lot of really neat things. Your LinkedIn looks like a highlight reel, and I love it, all the cool things that you've accomplished. But to me, life is more than just business. What is one item on your personal bucket list that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
Ooh, personal bucket list. Man, so many of my personal things are blended. I mean, I could go into, some of my family. I've got two kids and a wife, and I for my family, I say, I want to make my children feel adored, and I have a couple of things on how I think I can get there. I have to laugh because it's almost an OKR the way I've written my family goals of like, make them feel adored. And how does that? Okay, 4 dinner dates with my daughter, and I want to ski a lot more this winter time. That's always a big one of my favorite things to do.
Do you have a dream location or resort you want to ski?
Steamboat. It's not this year, but Steamboat has been my number one. I would love to go back to Whistler too. Anybody who's ever thinking of going to Whistler, it is 10 times better than you could ever imagine. Yeah. I'd love to get back to Necker Island too. That place is unbelievable. It is so much fun. So I don't know. I don't have as much of a good personal one for you as I thought.
So many of us entrepreneurs sometimes forget the personal goals, right? We're so well written in our business goals and those kind of things, and even finance. But when it's like, what do you want to do about living? I got
my goals right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, add a new list on the goals list of just stuff to do to live. But Garrett, really appreciate you coming out on the show. Where should people go to learn more about you? What's the best place?
Learn about me. I'd say my LinkedIn is definitely the best place to learn about me. And heylois, HEYLOIS.com. Obviously, very passionate about that. And I think you can see kind of an insight into how I think just by looking at the homepage there. So those would be the two places I would point someone to.
Awesome. Love it. Garrett, thank you so much for coming out on the show. And to all my biz ninjas, wherever you're listening, watching, or tuning in, it's your turn to go out and do something.